Be still now. Close the door of the outer world and come within. There, in the sacred silence of your soul, dwells the power that shapes your every tomorrow. You were never meant to chase the world. You were meant to remember that the world responds to your inner gaze. All things, people, circumstances, riches, healing, appear according to the state you occupy within. So what is the first step? Focus on God. Not the God of distance, not the God of fear, but the God within. The I am. The moment you say I am, you call upon the Creator. Every identity you attach to that statement becomes your reality. I am peaceful. I am provided for. I am healed. These are not affirmations. They are divine decrees. But you must humble yourself before this power. And humility is not weakness. It is reverence. It is the realization that your limited senses do not dictate truth. What you see with the eyes of flesh is only the echo of an old thought. What you choose to dwell upon now becomes your tomorrow. To humble yourself is to surrender the need to figure it all out. It is to let go of your timelines, your complaints, your need to be right. The proud demand signs. The humble walk by faith. And in this faith you must stay silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you are allowing the greater part of you to work. When you plant a seed, do you dig it up every hour to check its growth? No. You leave it. You trust the soil. So too, when you plant your intention in the soil of your spirit, you must let it rest in quiet faith. Silence is your strength. In stillness, the power moves. In silence, the doors open. What you do not speak of often comes to pass faster, for the world cannot interfere with what it does not know. So today, stop explaining yourself. Stop defending your desires. Stop asking others for validation. And above all, stop doubting the God within you. Focus inward. Bow in gratitude, not for what you are hoping to receive, but for what already exists in the unseen. And then be still. Let the stillness prove what your words cannot. The power that forms all things is not somewhere far away in the sky. It is not locked behind a temple door, nor is it reserved only for saints and sages. This power, the divine essence that breathes life into worlds, raises valleys, levels mountains, and answers unspoken prayers, dwells quietly within you. It is closer than your hands, nearer than your feet. It is in your breath, in your silence, in your imagination. And until you recognize this eternal truth, you will always live as if the world has power over you. Most live in fear because they believe they are separate from the source. They wake up worried about what the day will bring, fearing lack, judgment, rejection, or failure. But what if you knew that everything you would ever need is already seated within your being? What if you could understand that the world you walk through is not something happening to you, but something unfolding from you? You were not created to be powerless. You were created in the image of divine consciousness. And this consciousness doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. When you say, I am, you awaken that very power. I am is not a name, it is a door. And what you place after it becomes your experience. Look around your life. Every condition, every relationship, every pattern, these are mirrors of what you've accepted as true about yourself. If you have long believed you are unworthy, you will meet people who treat you that way. If you have believed you must work hard to earn love or success, life will echo that belief until you finally see that it was never about struggle, it was always about awareness. The power is not outside you. The world is not your master. It is your reflection. And the moment you change what you accept as truth within, the outer world must follow. This is law. You are not subject to your past. You are not bound by your upbringing, your environment, or the opinions of others. You are subject only to your inner assumptions. You become what you believe yourself to be, not what you wish to be, but what you accept as real in the stillness of your mind. Imagination is the creative faculty of the divine within. What you imagine and feel to be true becomes the substance of your world. You do not need to wait for things to change to feel peace. You need only enter the state where peace is already real. You do not wait for money to appear to feel rich. You move inward and assume the feeling of wealth. You think from the desired state, not toward it. This is not denial. This is creation. Once you realize that the divine lives in you as your own wonderful human imagination, you'll stop pleading with the world. You'll stop praying as if God was some far-off figure who might or might not hear you. Instead, you'll go within and commune with the I am. You'll speak inwardly, not as a beggar, but as one who knows the truth, that to assume a state is to manifest it. This is the quiet power that forms all things. And when you recognize it within yourself, fear dies. Because what is there to fear if you know that all you need to do is enter the state of what you desire and let it unfold? What is there to worry about if the world only reflects your inner world? You move differently. You'll speak less. You'll trust more. You'll begin to live not as one hoping for change, but as one who is the change. It has always been within you. Now is the time to remember. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of something far greater than noise can contain. In silence, you meet the eternal. You touch the source. You enter the place where the Spirit breathes and where creation quietly begins. It is not through loud declarations or repeated affirmations that the deepest manifestations are born. It is through stillness, through trust, through the silent knowing that God is already at work. Many believe they must speak endlessly, beg passionately, or declare their desires over and over again for the divine to hear. But the Spirit does not respond to volume, it responds to faith. And faith, true faith, does not need to convince. It rests. It leans back into the silence and allows the unseen to do its work. When you speak too often of your desire, when you explain, plead, or justify, you are not in belief, you are in doubt. You may not realize it, but every word spoken from fear delays the very thing you are asking for. Words, when spoken in anxiety, crowd the sacred space where miracles were meant to arrive. They make noise in a room that was built for peace. The most powerful moments in your spiritual life will not be marked by the things you say, but by the things you allow yourself to feel in the silence. It is there in that gentle stillness that the presence of God whispers truth to your soul. Not in shouting, not in spectacle, but in silence. You don't need to announce what you're creating. You don't need to explain your journey. You don't need to prove your faith to anyone, not even yourself. Your stillness proves it. When you can sit in the quiet and feel the reality of your answered prayer without needing anyone else to confirm it, that is when it begins to manifest. That is when the inner world starts to move the outer world. All of creation begins in the invisible, and silence is the womb of the invisible. In silence, the seed takes root. In silence, the old breaks down and the new is prepared. To the outer world, it may appear as if nothing is happening, but the one who understands the Spirit knows better. They know that in stillness, God works fastest, because there is no resistance, no panic, no interference, only allowing. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill it with noise, conversation, distractions, or endless questions. But silence is not to be feared, it is to be entered. Because silence is sacred. It is where you release control, where you stop managing outcomes, where you let go of the need to be seen or heard or validated. Silence is strength. It is not weakness to say nothing. It is not passivity to trust in quiet. It is alignment. Those who know the truth walk silently because they are certain of what is coming. They do not need to speak of it. Their spirit already holds it. You are not required to shout your intentions to the sky. The whisper of belief within you is loud enough for the entire universe to respond. God is not hard of hearing. The Spirit is not confused. It is precise. It is responsive. And it is activated by your inner acceptance, not by your outer expression. So hold your peace. Sit with your desire in stillness. Let your inner world become full of the thing you seek, and then fall silent. Trust that what you have accepted within will be made visible without. Not because you said the right words, but because you entered the right state. Silence is the highest form of faith. It says, I do not need to see it yet. I already know. And it is in that knowing, in that sacred silence, that all things unfold. Humility is often misunderstood. It is not self-deprecation. It is not shrinking to make others feel tall. It is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. To humble yourself is not to lose power, but to bring your power under divine alignment. It is not weakness, but strength harnessed with wisdom. The wild river that is tamed becomes a source of life. The same river left unchecked can destroy. Such is the nature of power. When guided by humility, it becomes creative, not destructive. In the world, many confuse pride with strength. They speak loudly, demand recognition, and rush to defend their names. But true power does not need to prove anything. It does not need applause or attention. It moves quietly, efficiently, and with great purpose. A lion does not need to announce that it is a lion. The same is true for the one who is spiritually awake. They know who they are. They know what lives within them. And in that knowing, they are free to be still. Humility is not forgetting that you have power. It is remembering where it comes from. It is recognizing that your life, your gifts, your mind, your breath, all originate from a source far greater than the ego. And so rather than take credit for all that flows through you, you surrender the need to be seen and instead seek only to remain in harmony with that higher order. You become a vessel, not the origin. You become a channel, not the source. The quietest vessel often holds the deepest oil. The most refined spirit often walks without drawing attention. They carry something too sacred to display for the crowd. Their richness is inward. Their peace is not for show. When you humble yourself, you allow this richness to deepen. You stop leaking energy in the form of defense, comparison, or control. You no longer fight to be right. You rest in the truth that your worth is not up for debate. It has already been established by the divine within. To humble yourself is to become teachable. It is to admit that you do not know everything, and in doing so you make space for revelation. Pride closes the door to wisdom, but humility keeps it wide open. It says, I am willing to be shown. I am willing to learn. I do not need to lead every step. I am willing to be led. And in this surrender, miracles begin to move, not because you force them, but because you align with the order through which they arise. When you release the need to elevate yourself in the eyes of others, you become available for elevation in the eyes of God. Those who try to lift themselves by shouting often fall the hardest, but those who go low in reverence are lifted high in purpose. The Spirit honors the quiet heart. It trusts the one who does not seek credit. For it knows that what is done in humility cannot be shaken by praise or destroyed by criticism. So let yourself go low, not in shame, but in reverence. Bow not to the world, but to the divine law within. Let your ego become still, so that your spirit may rise. You will find that everything you are chasing outside of yourself, respect, peace, direction, abundance, begins to come not when you grasp for it, but when you let go and align with something higher. This is humility. Power surrendered to purpose, willingness wrapped in wisdom, and in this state you become not smaller but stronger, not diminished but defined. You are no longer a wave crashing against life, but the deep ocean, calm, vast, and full of unshakable presence. Faith is not a frantic reaching, it is a quiet receiving. It does not beg, chase, or wrestle for what already exists. Faith is not born in struggle, it is revealed in stillness. When you truly believe that what you desire is already finished in the unseen, you do not rush to force its arrival. You rest. You breathe. You walk in quiet confidence, knowing that delay is never denial, and what is yours cannot pass you by. The world teaches that you must push harder, speak louder, do more. But in the spiritual realm, more noise does not create more power. The opposite is true. The most powerful manifestations are not forged through struggle, but accepted through surrender, not through effort, but through alignment. To believe is to know that the seed is already planted. And what does the farmer do once the seed is placed in the soil? He does not dig it up, worried it won't grow. He does not scream at the earth, begging for roots to form. He waters it, he watches, he waits. And he knows, because the nature of the seed and the promise of the soil are enough. So it is with faith. Once you have imagined the end, once you have felt the reality of your desire is already fulfilled in the unseen, you must let it be, not because you have given up, but because you know it is done. To continue worrying, doubting, or forcing is to uproot what has already begun to grow. The still heart is the believing heart, and it is in this stillness that God moves. Stillness is not inactivity, it is inner peace. It is a spirit that no longer panics at what it sees, because it knows what it has accepted within. You may be walking through a storm, but faith will keep your steps steady. You may hear silence in the outer world, but faith knows that things are shifting behind the curtain. The curtain is only temporary, and behind it the divine is arranging all things according to your inner conviction. When you struggle, you are trying to make something happen. When you believe, you rest in the knowing that it already has. This is not blind hope, it is spiritual law. The moment you dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, you have already moved into the world where that reality exists. The outer must follow the inner. That is the agreement between the seen and the unseen. The need to convince others or even convince yourself is a sign that you have not fully entered the state. But when you do, when you shift from hoping to knowing, you will no longer need to speak about it constantly. You will not chase signs, you will become the sign. Your energy will carry the quiet weight of someone who has already received. Faith speaks in stillness. It waits with grace. It does not count the hours, nor does it compare paths. It does not wonder how or when, it simply aligns with the end and allows life to orchestrate the steps. And those steps, often invisible at first, will always lead you to the outcome you accepted within. So enter that stillness now. Lay down the mental noise. Set aside the need to struggle. Choose instead to occupy the place of peace, that place where the prayer is already answered, the healing already done, the door already opened. You do not have to fight for what is already yours. You need only be still and know. Faith is not proven in how much you move, but in how deeply you rest. In that rest, everything begins to unfold. Your focus is sacred. It is the compass of your life. Wherever you direct it, the energy of creation follows. What you constantly observe, entertain, and emotionally dwell upon expands, not because the world is choosing for you, but because your focus is signaling what you accept as real. Your focus determines what God magnifies in your experience. The divine presence within you responds not to your outer activity, but to your inner attention. You may not always control what appears in the outer world, but you always choose what you magnify. Two people can walk through the same situation, and one will find peace while the other finds chaos because of where they place their gaze. You are not at the mercy of appearances. You are not a victim of the visible. You are a creator in spirit, and creation begins in attention. Divine energy is not random. It does not flow to what you simply wish for once. It flows to what you continually focus on with feeling. If you place your attention on lack, even if you pray for abundance, you will feel more lack. If you focus on fear, even if you speak of faith, your world will reflect fear. Not because God withholds, but because your attention is directing divine energy toward the very thing you do not want. But the moment you shift your gaze inward, toward the presence of God, the I am within, you tap into a power that transforms everything. To focus on God is not to repeat religious words or memorize scripture. It is to remember, moment by moment, that the Creator is not outside of you. It is within you, breathing through you and expressing as your life. When you focus on this truth, your thoughts change, your emotions stabilize, your world begins to bend in the direction of your inner state. What you focus on becomes your atmosphere, and that atmosphere attracts and shapes experience. This is not mysticism, it is law. If you constantly worry, you surround yourself with an energy that invites more reasons to worry. But when your focus is rooted in peace, trust, and the quiet awareness of divine presence, even storms cannot shake you. The key is not to fight your negative thoughts, but to starve them of attention. Starve the fear, starve the doubt, starve the assumptions of failure, and feed the truth. Feed the awareness of who you really are, a vessel of God's own being. The more you feed it with your focus, the more it grows. And what grows within you must eventually express itself without. If you fix your inner gaze on the presence of God, you will find that life begins to feel lighter. You stop looking to others for validation, for answers, or for signs. You stop reacting to appearances and start responding from truth. You move from the shadows of doubt into the clarity of vision. It is not about never being distracted, it is about returning your focus each time you drift. Come back to the center, come back to the I am, the presence that needs no explanation, no proof, no effort, only recognition. And as you recognize it, you begin to reflect it. Your words soften, your choices align, your energy carries the calm certainty of someone who walks with the divine. So guard your focus. It is not a small thing, it is everything. Let the world say what it will. Let circumstances rise and fall. But let your gaze remain fixed, not on the noise, not on the fear, but on the eternal presence within you. That is what God will magnify. That is what life will multiply. Because where your attention goes, divine energy flows, and what you see within, you will surely see without. There is a sacred instruction hidden in the stillness. Be still and you shall know. It is not a suggestion, it is a key. A whisper from the divine reminding you that everything you seek is already here, waiting just beyond your noise, beyond your panic, beyond your reaction. The answers you're chasing, the blessings you're praying for, the guidance you crave, they do not come through frantic effort. They come through inner quiet. Not when you are striving, but when you are trusting. Most people live in reaction. They move from one thought to another, one emotion to the next, tossed about by every shift in the external world. A piece of news changes their mood. A delay shakes their belief. A comment from someone else defines their worth. They are never still, and because of that they do not know. Knowing comes in the silence. It rises when the mind grows quiet and the soul is allowed to speak. In stillness, you hear what the noise of the world drowns out. You begin to sense the gentle movements of divine order, and you realize nothing was ever out of place. Everything was always moving exactly as it needed to. But you could not see it because you were too busy reacting. Stillness is not passivity, it is not laziness, it is not doing nothing, it is the most powerful form of spiritual alignment. In stillness, you are not escaping life, you are stepping fully into it without resistance. You are no longer trying to force what has already been promised. You are allowing the unseen to reveal itself in divine timing. When you are still, you stop chasing signs. You stop asking the same questions over and over. You stop pleading for evidence. You begin to walk with the kind of confidence that only comes from a deep inner knowing, not a surface-level hope, but a soul-level truth. You know that what you have accepted within must unfold without. You know that the delay is never punishment but preparation. Stillness teaches you trust. Not the kind of trust that needs to be constantly reassured, but the kind that rests. The kind that says, even if I cannot see it yet, I know it is working. This trust does not come from seeing results. It comes from becoming aligned with the source that creates results. And that alignment is only possible when you are still. You may think you need to do more, to fix everything, to explain yourself, to make others understand. But the truth is, most of what you are trying to solve will unravel on its own the moment you stop interfering. When you no longer react to every fear, every delay, every voice of doubt, you make space for divine wisdom to rise and show you a better way. You cannot hear it when you're shouting. You cannot feel it when you're frantic, but it has never left you. Stillness allows you to see that you were never waiting on the world to move. The world was waiting on you to be still, to trust the unseen, to walk by faith and not by sight, to sit quietly with your desire and say, it is done, without needing proof. That stillness is not weakness, it is power in its purest form. You don't need to figure it all out. You only need to quiet down and listen. Every answer will come. Every blessing will unfold. Every path will clear. But not because you forced it, because you aligned with it. Because you chose to trust rather than panic. Because you knew the divine lives in the still space between your thoughts. So be still, not just in body, but in mind, in spirit, in expectation. And you shall know. Know the truth, know the way, know the presence of God moving through your life, and that knowing will become your peace, your strength, and your unshakable foundation. In a world that urges you to act, to speak, to chase, and to prove, remember this: the most profound power moves in stillness. The divine does not need your struggle, it responds to your trust. Focus on God. Humble yourself and stay silent, not because you are weak, but because you are wise enough to align with something far greater than yourself. You don't need to shout to be heard by the heavens. You don't need to chase what's already yours in spirit. Be still. Trust the presence within. Where your gaze rests, God magnifies. What you surrender in faith returns in fulfillment. Let your silence speak. Let your humility rise. Let your focus become a prayer. Thank you. Thank you for listening with an open heart. May these words become a quiet strength within you, guiding your steps with grace, power, and divine clarity.